Welcome back to the Kimchi Redneck Kitchen.
I wasn't aware of the new intro. Sorry if my face was a little appalled.
Hey,
Yeah.
whatevs. So, we are cooking.
Again.
Well, technically, she's cooking. I'm supervising.
I'm going to put him to work, though.
Yeah, right. So, what are we cooking?
We are cooking Tteok Mandu Guk, which is Korean rice cake soup with dumplings.
Guk is soup in general. Mandu is, well, it's mandu, it's dumplings. And tteok is the rice cakes.
So these are actually soup dumplings.
Yes.
So I like this brand because it tells me what's in it. So this has beef, green onion, and onion in it.
Yeah, nice little pictures on
I
it.
like this brand.
Which, by the way, is pulmone.
Tteok comes in a couple different forms. You can get sliced tteok, or you can we usually get the tteok that has cheese inside of it, so it's the longer tteok.
But for cooking a soup, this is probably safer, and I think you have to soak these.
We do have to soak them, but you don't want to soak them too long, because then they will get to the point where they'll just disintegrate in your water.
Apart, yeah.
We don't want them to disintegrate, so that's why we haven't soaked them yet. But we will soak those for a few minutes before they go in. Right now, we're just making our stock. Yes.
Right.
So our stock is going to be a beef stock. The recipe we're using is from KimchiMari. It'll be in a description. The beef stock that we're making, the beef is actually going to be used in the soup. It's going to be a garnish, which is kind of nice. We're making enough for just two.
Small pot.
Small pot. Well, big pot, but we're only making for two. We have about 0.33 pound of meat.
Yeah.
About a quarter pound of meat. So
A little more than a quarter pound of meat. Which we have soaked in some water to deblood.
Deblooding is apparently an important thing. Stock itself is going to have onion, green onion, beef, and we are actually adding peppercorn because we really loved that stock that we made that had the peppercorn added in. We thought it gave it such a wonderful flavor.
Those
and you're
great
going
things.
to use some pepper in this anyways. So why not just add the peppercorn in? So that's our addition.
Does great things with beef.
It's so flavorful. It's so good. So very first thing we're doing, we've got 3 cups of water already in the pot. Turn that on. Chuck is going to trim some green onion.
How much am I trimming?
Well, we need 0.67 of green onions. Yeah, that's what happens when you split recipes if they don't split well. I do at least, yeah, those two. Probably need to be rinsed. We do have 1 whole onion, which hers said medium onion, but I didn't have any medium onions, so we're just going to go with this whole onion. Do you think we should use the whole onion itself or part of it?
Sure.
Sure, use the whole thing?
Use the whole thing.
Okay. I'm going to put our peppercorns in a soup bag. We are going to put a 1/4 teaspoon. Wow. Should we put a 1/4 teaspoon or a half?
Go to half.
All right, we're going with a half. That was so little. It's probably like 10 peppercorns there. So our peppercorns are going in our soup bag so that they're easy to get out when we're ready to get them out. And we just dump that right on in. I'm going to take the meat. We're going to dump that right on in. And go ahead and put our onion in.
All right, and you said we're just cutting these in half?
Yeah, just cut them in half. Now we're going to dump our green onions in. We're going to bring this up to a boil. Once this boils, we're going to let it simmer for about an hour to develop that flavor and goodness.
Yep.
And then when that's done, we'll come back and we will take everything out. The only thing that we're actually going to save out of here is the beef, because the beef is actually going to be part of the meal. So
if you don't like straining your stuff, you could just get a bigger soup bag and put all the veggies in it and pull them out, but
I decided not to do that today because we didn't have as much water in the pot, so I wanted to make sure I had enough room for everything.
Yeah.
All right, so the other thing that I have brought out that is not part of the recipe, my little friend,
little MSG,
the king of flavor. So I will add just a pinch of that into the stock when we start cooking everything else together. For now, I'm gonna put my mandu back in the freezer so it doesn't thaw out, because you don't want it completely thawed.
Otherwise it'll just come apart in the soup.
Right. It won't take long to cook this soup. And we're really looking forward to the flavor, building the flavors. So once it boils, you bring it down to a simmer and you put the lid on and let it boil for an hour.
Right.
Simmer for an hour. The other thing we'd like to tell you is Happy New Year.
Oh yeah, that's
Happy
right.
Lunar New Year.
It is Seollal.
The whole reason we're making this soup.
Derp.
Duh. So the whole reason that we're making this tteokguk, which this is actually a Tteok Mandu Guk, but it's still rice cake soup, is because it is Lunar New Year. So February the 2nd is the actual day this year of Lunar New Year. And the Koreans do celebrate that every year. It's a time that they go back and they celebrate their families. They do really deep traditional bows to their family members, the elder family members.
Yeah.
And they...
The living ones. It's Chosuk is the one where they do the dead ancestors.
Right. So it's a time for families to get together. The rice cake soup, from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, please, but from what I understand, eating the rice cake soup makes you a year older as well. So
that's that whole Korean age thing, and we've never quite figured that out.
I've never figured that out, and as a woman, I'm eating rice cake soup, but I'm not getting a year older.
Yeah, supposedly...
I will subtract a year, though, for eating the rice cake soup.
Supposedly, what little grasp I got of it, is everybody's Korean age goes up a year on Lunar New Year, so everybody celebrates it together. But you're also born at like 1 year old, so sometimes you can have people that are born, if you do the math right, in like December or January, and they'll be 2 years old before they're out of their 6-month-old nappies.
Yeah.
It's weird.
I don't really understand all that, so I stay out of that. The other thing I read, that rice cake is like a symbolic thing of wealth or a coin, because they're similar shaped to a coin or something, so it's wishing to bring in coin or wealth into the new year. So
yeah,
we'll totally go with that one. We'll wish wealth for the new year. But
so we're gonna
boil our soup.
we're gonna be quiet and boil our soup. We will see you on a little bit. Take a look, see what do we got.
So we're gonna pull out, kind of drip as much of the liquid. Don't want to take the liquid out. So we'll squeeze them out. We didn't really have to do a whole lot of skimming because we had a very lean meat. Beef that we've got to shred. So the next step is actually shredding that beef to marinate it, because that's going to be a garnish.
Yeah, beef garnish.
Yeah, it looks pretty good. Okay, so while Chuck shreds that beef, we're going to hand shred that. I'm going to go ahead and put together the ingredients for our marinade. So we need a 1/4 teaspoon of soup soy sauce. This is going to be challenging. This is such a little amount. I don't think I've ever used this little bit of soy sauce.
Most recipes would just call it a splash.
And then regular soy sauce, we're going to need a 1/2 teaspoon. So you have to pour really slow for this. Right. We got a 1/2 teaspoon. Then we're going to need garlic. We're going with minced garlic, so we're going to get 3/4 of a teaspoon. Check it out. And then gochugaru. We need 1/8 of a teaspoon of that. The littlest amount I've ever seen of gochugaru in something.
It's literally like a pinch.
It really is. And also 1/8 of a teaspoon of black pepper. Okay. We need 1/4 teaspoon of that. Chopped green onions. And 3/4 of sesame oil.
Alright, how much green onion?
It says 1.33 tablespoons.
A tablespoon of sliced onion? That's a weird measurement.
It is a very weird measurement. How about you just chop that up, and we know we need it for garnish as well. I'm also going to put a pinch of MSG in our broth. All right, I will take that in here, and that'll be my mixture for that. So now you're going to want to try and get all of that coated over top of your beef. It's basically just going to give it just a little bit of flavor. I put a glove on because there's gochugaru here, and even that little bit of amount, if I pet the dogs later, I don't want them getting that on them. And then the rest of that green onion we're going to use for garnish. I don't think it can be any mixed more than it is right now. We're going to call that mixed. This is what happens when you reduce your recipe down to portions just for 2. Right, Chuck?
Yeah, you wind up with some very
odd
odd
numbers.
measurements.
So you need 2 eggs, Chuck, that you're going to put in a small bowl, whisk lightly, and add just a pinch of salt. And we are going to season our broth with a 1/4 teaspoon of soy sauce. Soup soy sauce, that is. And a 1/4 teaspoon of sea salt. And then we're going to bring that back up to a boil. We've got our rice cake soaking, so just a little bit of a soak on that. I usually think of soy sauce as being what's adding my flavor, you know?
Well, you don't want to add a flavor, you want to add a hint.
Right. So if you can see the steam here, we are boiling. So we're going to go ahead and add our rice cake because we want it to cook a little bit faster than the mandu. We did soak our rice cake.
But they're still a little stiffer than I think they should be, so we're going to put them in so they cook a little longer.
So we're going to give that a couple minutes here, bring that back up to a boil, and then we're going to add our mandu. So it's been about maybe 2 minutes, so we're going to start putting our soup mandus in. These are still frozen. So basically, you'll know that this is done when your mandu and your tteok are floating on the top. All right, so you gonna mix that up?
I was going to say, it'll give us a chance to grab one of these and test. Oh yeah, that's a lot more flexible.
It cooked quick.
Huh, yeah.
Quicker than you thought.
Quit a lot quicker than I thought. Okay, fair enough.
Well, we don't usually eat a lot of tteok, so you probably weren't as used to that. Now we're waiting for it to bring back up to a boil, and we can put the lid back on right now. The very next thing that Chuck will do, because he's the egg master. You're the egg master. That's you. Once we get our mandu cooked and floating back up to the top, Chuck is actually going to take the egg that he has mixed together and he will swirl it around the pan, kind of like egg drop soup, sort of. So I know the Seoul style of tteokguk actually has you make the egg, the chopped egg, for the garnish.
Oh yeah.
From what I understand from reading hers, her family was from North Korea. So this is more of a North Korean style, which as long as it tastes good, we don't really care where it came from.
I don't really feel like frying out and rolling up and chopping an egg, so.
No, this works for me. Not quite yet. So once we have everything together, we will bowl it, and we don't eat this with rice, or you could, I guess, eat this with rice if you chose to. But
if you chose to,
that's
but
a lot of rice. Even though it's rice in a different form, to me, it still seems very carb heavy. So we're choosing not to eat it with rice because too many carbs.
souping it up. I mean, on a soup diet anyway.
All right, so now we're going to pour the egg in.
So if you put something like some tongs or a fork or something under here, when the egg hits it, it'll kind of divide into little streams instead of big blobs.
We're going to turn the heat off, and Chuck is going to add the green onions in as well. One thing of note is she does mention that if you choose not to make your own stock, she does not recommend using beef broth or beef stock. She recommends using chicken stock because apparently beef stock does not give it the flavor that you're looking for this, which I found interesting. But, all right, so we're going to serve this up.
We have made soup, and surprisingly, the recipe actually made
2 bowls.
portions for 2. So.
Yay! The marinated beef has gone on top for the garnish. The egg is mixed in. We're going to mix that meat.
We've got our glamour shots. We're going to go ahead and mix it up.
So this will actually be the first time I think I've actually had this soup.
And here's where you want to be a little careful because you don't want to bust your dumplings. But be careful biting them.
Yeah, because they're going to be nuclear.
All right, let's get a dumpling. Yeah, dumplings.
Have you tried the beef yet?
Dumplings are actually really good.
Have you tried? The beef has a really good flavor.
Do not, however, put the whole dumpling in your mouth because it's got nuclear fluid in it.
I usually cut my dumpling in half.
No, there's going to be some fool out there like me who wants to get the whole dumpling on and be like, ah. Yeah, don't. Bad idea. Tasty, bad idea.
Now, of course, if you are feeling so inclined, you could always make your own dumplings. Always make your own mandu.
That is an option. It's fairly work involved.
We have not done that, but that may be something we decide to try in the future. Don't know yet. But for now...
Fortunately for those of us in the 21st century, you can buy the mandu pea, the coating cover wrapper. You can buy that pre-made. You don't have to mix that up and roll it out.
I'm not going to be rolling out the mandu pea, no.
And the rest of it's just cooking up the the stuffing and stuffing it in and crimping it. So, this is good and tasty. We've made a dish for Seollal.
The more traditional one is going to be the tteokguk, which is just the rice cake soup, and you can make that just by not adding the mandu if you choose. But the mandu adds another level of flavor, and I kind of like that. A lot of people will use the KimchiMari in there, and that would have given it a different flavor as well.
Yeah. Or just a veggie mandu.
Yeah. And you can serve it with banchan if you choose. I asked Chuck if he wanted banchan, and he said no. So, no banchan for Chuck. But Suki Dog apparently didn't get asked if she wanted banchan, and she did.
Happy Lunar New Year, everybody. We have soup to eat, and the dogs are complaining that we haven't fed them yet.
So, like, subscribe.
Did all that internet stuff.
We'll see you guys next time.
Bye-bye.